So selection bias is a non-random assignment to a study group. And basically, what happens is that you can either already kind of know what the people are like before you assign them into groups. For instance, let's say you put more responsible people into a control group and less responsible people into the other group, so that they differ in the way they act. And you can also have a big one is loss to follow up. Loss to follow up. And that basically means that you're losing people in the study that may or may not have some of the risk factors that lead to getting a disease. And it doesn't matter how many people there are, and it doesn't matter if they are more likely to get the disease or less likely to get the disease, the people that you lose to follow-up. But it does matter is that it affects the overall thing, your overall study. Another sort of bias is recall bias, and that means that some of the people who are in the study kind of know what's going on. They research their disease, and they research what to expect, and everything like that. So knowing that you have a disorder makes you recall the facts differently, to maybe put yourself in a more positive light, or to just kind of say what the researcher is kind of expecting to hear. So it kind of skews your results that way. So sampling bias is basically that means that your study group isn't representative of the whole population. So let's say here's your whole population, and you have white people and black people. And let's say you only advertise your study in a rich white neighborhood. So you're getting only this chunk of people. And that could be people that walk around a lot, so they're active. It could be people that walk by a certain post office or something. But basically it means your study group isn't the whole population. And you could reduce this bias by just getting a lot more people. Now, a late look bias is kind of a weird bias, and it basically means you're gathering your information for your study at an inappropriate time. The biggest example is using something to study fatal diseases. So if most of your people are dead, they can't really report anything back to you, and if part of your study isn't to look at biopsies or autopsies, then you can't really ask your dead people questions. So only the people that are alive can actually answer questions. So you have to kind of think with it it's too late. It's too late to look back. That's the way I remember it. So procedure bias is basically differing in your procedure between your two groups. So there's a control and a treatment. So let's say you really want to find out if your treatment's effective, so you follow up more frequently. Maybe you offer a monetary bonus if they take all their pills right. Or basically you just give them more attention, so it'll prove that your treatment's working. And just think about the procedure bias means you're changing the procedure for both groups. So confounding bias is basically looking at two closely associated factors. So let's, for instance, talk about obesity and diabetes. Okay. Now, one kind of affects the other. So if you have uncontrolled hyperglycemia, it's usually going to result in weight gain. So if you treat the diabetes, you're kind of treating the obesity as well. So basically, they're very interconnected. So you could look at weight loss in a population based off of diabetic control. And they're very closely related. So confounding means you're just it's very confounding, it's very confusing because all these factors interrelate, like obesity, diabetes, hypertension, stuff like that. So confounding just means you're mixing up all your variables. So lead time bias is basically a look at early detection. It's a look at screening tools. So let's, for instance, look at breast cancer. So here's someone's life who's got to get breast cancer, and here's another person's life who's going to get breast cancer. So basically you don't see breast cancer manifest itself until a certain point. But if you have a screening tool that looks for little tiny bits of breast cancer, let's say you find it right here using your new tool, and let's say you find this person's breast cancer a little bit later using some other tool. And basically their life from end to end is about the same, but just because you detect this earlier um, you result so this is their effective life in your eyes. So this person didn't live that. This person only lived this long, and this person lived this much longer in your study. But basically, they have both the same effective life. So it's different from late look. Late look is when they're already dead, or when people are already dead. And lead time is basically it's a fake kind of life prolongation because you detected something earlier. Let's say you looked for like a smaller little nodule than most people look at. So Pygmalion effect is basically kind of looking at a different sort of procedure bias. It's when you really think the treatment's going to work, and the fact that you think the treatment's going to work changes the outcome. So you pay way more attention to people in the treatment group. You follow up with them, want to make sure it's working. Maybe you're doing it for monetary gain or just because of your personal belief. But basically, you think the treatment's going to work, so you'll do anything to do it to make it work. So the Hawthorne effect is basically people change their behaviors when they know they're being studied. So if you're doing a study on hypertension and treatment for hypertension, maybe they're getting better because of the drug, but also they're getting better because, oh, someone's watching me, I better work out, and I just want to look good in front of this person. Or the person doesn't do anything, doesn't take their drugs, or just gains weight to spite the doctor or something like that. But it basically means they change the way they act because someone's watching them. And a good thing to think about is Dr. Hawthorne, it's a very ominous name, is watching. So that's him.